This is the Santita Jackson Show.
This is the Santita Jackson Show. Of course, you heard it here first. You're on with Raza, Siddiqui, and Tia, Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman. We are filling in for the great Santita Jackson today. We've got a lot to discuss on this New Year's Eve as we kind of broach not only what we have dealt with as a community, what we have dealt with as a state, but look forward to the next chapter as we enter 2021. We're going to talk about some important issues, Tia. What are we going to talk about that you're most excited about?
Well, right now, today, we're trying to talk about COVID-19, the vaccine, and how the vaccine is, how's it working. We want to hear about the pros and cons of what's going on across the nation. And it's an honor to have Mr. George Miller back on, the CEO of Loretto Hospital, and Dr. Ali from Affinity Healthcare. So it's really an honor. But it's a lot of things that took place in the year 2020. Right now, in the second hour, we plan to talk about gun violence in Chicago. We have close to 800 homicides, a little bit of 4,000 people shot, close to 1,200 carjackings in Chicago in the year 2020.
It's been an especially violent year, and it's something we need to talk about. In our second hour, like you were saying, we're going to have Regina, Brent, and Paul Scott from Unity Partnership, who are working to build and facilitate that relationship between police and the community. And this is a topic that we need to discuss, and this is a topic of utmost importance as we look ahead.
Oh, that's very important because, some of the long-term issues with the police and, you got this consent decree. And so far, the city of Chicago, there's been 70% of the deadlines have been missed when it comes down to really police reform and police change in Chicago. So that's something people need to really pay attention to, because if we really want to heal the community overall, we must do a little bit better in the category of making the necessary changes. I know there's only 24 hours in a day. I know people get busy, but the federal government actually put a mandate out there that this consent decree needs to be adhered to and all the necessary changes need to be made. So that's another discussion there that we can talk about. But in the year 2020, there was a whole lot of, you had a lot of rioting, looting taking place in Chicago, and you've had a lot of issues that surfaced in Chicago throughout, because a lot of businesses are going out of business due to the pandemic. Right now, you got McConnell, on the United States government level, talking about blocking the $2,000 checks. People need their money in America right now. You got a lot of poor people, middle class people. They can use another $2,000 in their bank account just to, make ends meet sometimes. So some people sitting on the mountaintop are looking down on people, and that's not really good, because in the particular bill that they're pushing, the stimulus and pandemic funding or whatever, there's like a lot of funding there for a lot of different nations across the world. But why not take care of your own people first, to a degree? Because in Canada, Switzerland, in Canada, they're providing almost $2,000 a month for people during this pandemic every month. I mean, they're not even second guessing taking care of their citizens. So that's something we might kind of delve off into just a little bit. But I want to really, really know what's going on with the vaccine, because I'm hearing a lot of different stories. You have to take 2 different doses. Now they're saying there's another strain of COVID coming out that might be worse than the first strain.
Right. They're saying that it spreads more quickly.
Right.
And we've just seen the light at the end of the tunnel with what's going on with COVID.
Right.
All of a sudden for this news to hit. So we are going to jump into this. We're going to invite George Miller and Ali Emma to come on with us. George, we talked to you a couple of weeks ago. You actually, a few days after we spoke with you, announced that your hospital was the first one in Chicago to administer this vaccine. Very excited that you guys, your frontline workers, have access to this. Tell me how your world has changed.
Well, we're very excited that we were the first in Chicago and partly in the entire state of Illinois to receive the vaccination. One of our clinicians, Dr. Nikki Jabati, administered the very first vaccination to another physician who worked at UIC emergency room physician. And we were very excited, and then including 3 of our own team members at the Loretto Hospital. In addition, the next day, I took it live on CNN because we want to demonstrate that it is safe, it's effective, especially to African Americans who question and justifiably so question the fact that this vaccination has come on board quickly. However, there are some startling facts, and quite frankly, there are only positives to taking this vaccination. There are no negatives in my mind. And the reason for that is it will keep people from getting this serious virus, including the new strain that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And also will protect others from getting the virus if you've taken the vaccination. I took it 2 weeks ago. I have no ill effects, no side effects whatsoever. Again, Dr. Ali can attest. He was there when we took the vaccination, along with our chief operating officer.
George, I'm just going to step in real quick with a question I have. So with this new strain, this vaccine will be effective against the new strain as well. Is that correct? This is not a different disease, but something that that will also be able to be controlled and mitigated with this vaccine?
That's correct. So far, has been effective against the new strand. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. One of the things that we also wanted to talk about was the challenges that you face, because there's distrust. We talked about this. There's distrust in the community sometimes about vaccinations, about the systemic racism that is in the healthcare industry as well. We had you on, I think it was a week later, we heard about Susan Moore down in Carmel, Indiana, who was a physician who was hospitalized, who told them, I need certain treatment, and was denied that. There's a stigma, I think, sometimes. What do you tell people? Because this is a reality. This is something that you have to face. As well as administering a hospital, you have to talk about how to communicate and educate that you're out there trying to do the best you can for people, right? I mean, if nobody partakes in this, it's not really a service. How do you fight that?
It was you bring an excellent point, because she was a physician in the hospital, and she wanted the treatment because she had COVID, and quite frankly, there's no other excuse other than racism. The physician said, "You're not having that type of pain. You don't need additional care," and she died. She died, and so that's racism. She wanted additional treatment because she recognized the positive aspect of treating COVID with the appropriate medicine. So, quite frankly, she's a tragic figure that says, "I needed additional care," and the physician didn't listen to it. There is racism quite blatantly in our healthcare system, and we've got to fight that each and every day. Last time I talked about it, still exists to this day, and that is, if you live in downtown Chicago, life expectancy there is 88.2 years of life. But just 9 miles away on exit 23B on the Eisenhower, it drops down to 68.2 years of life. That's 20 years of life, and so we have to fight that each and every day. That racism exists, and Martin Luther King, 55 years ago in Chicago, said that racism in healthcare is the most inhumane, and we've got to fight that each and every day.
So, George, I want to ask you a question here, because a lot of people feel that COVID-19 is not a virus that a lot of young people can catch, so to speak, because I'm looking at different stories in the media now. I saw where a little kid, not a toddler, about a 3 or 4 year old kid, died from COVID-19. Then you had a young girl about 18 years old. So I want to clear up any of the misinformation. This, which I already know, the virus, anybody can catch it, but let's clear up any. And then I also want to ask you, how many people did Loretto serve on the first day that you all started administering the vaccine? But let's clear up some of the misnotions, so to speak, that young people are not really as susceptible to catching this virus to a degree. How about that, George?
Yeah, you're exactly correct. That is a myth. They can catch it. There's documented cases, facts.
Right.
Young people can catch it. They normally will not be as susceptible as older folks like my age, but they still can catch it. And so they need the protection as well. Wearing a mask, practicing social distancing, and washing their hands frequently is the best way to mitigate this virus. But it can be caught by young people, and they can die from it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, good stuff. And then on behalf of Loretto Hospital, how did everything turn out the first day that you started to administer the vaccines? And how many people have you served so far at Loretto Hospital?
Right. The vaccination for the first tranche is for healthcare workers. So we gave the vaccination to over 250 of our team members and physicians at the Loretto Hospital. We're not making it ready to the public.
Okay.
The CDC is deciding the next wave will be for those 75 years of age and older and nursing home. But the state health department and the city health department allocates how much of the vaccination will be available. So right now, the first wave we received is for healthcare workers who treat COVID patients each and every day.
Yeah.
And if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Raza Siddiqui. This is Tio Hardiman. We are on with George Miller from Loretto Hospital and also Ali Ahmad with Affinity Healthcare, who's helping George kind of with the testing of the vaccine. So we are discussing what's going on. You're welcome to join this conversation. You can call us up at 773-763-9278. Again, 773-763-9278. As we talk about some of the challenges that healthcare faces, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with COVID-19. We're seeing that there's hope out there, but we also need to talk about how we can provide that hope equitably, how we can provide those vaccines in an equitable fashion so the people that get it. Tio, we know this. We know that the Black and the brown communities in Chicago and across the country have been disproportionately affected by this disease. And we know that there is a real need in these communities to get this vaccination, to have that knowledge. We also know there's distrust.
Well, there's a lot of distrust because it goes back, especially in the Black community, George Miller, the Tuskegee experiment with syphilis, right? So that's one of the issues out there that wasn't never really addressed until like maybe 50 or 60 years later. So the distrust is out there. Then also, George, I would like for you, Ali, or either George, to clip another like misperception, I believe, because I've read some stories in the media where some people did, they became a little sick once they took the vaccine. Should a person eat some food before they take the vaccine, George, so their system would be like something in their system, so to speak? And I saw another story where a nurse, she fainted after she took the vaccine right on television. Then I saw another story where a lady said her face became disfigured. I don't know if all this stuff is all the way true or not, but I did see some news stories across the nation on, a few people, but overall it appears the vaccine is going okay. So let me ask you that, George, or Dr. Ali, should a person have a full stomach before they take the vaccine, or, just anything that you can help the people? Because I have a lot of people listening and watching, and we just want to educate the people on the highest level possible when it comes to the vaccine.
And we'll talk. We'll start with you, George, and then we'll talk to Ali about the future of this vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Let me deal with the myth that Theo just mentioned. First of all, nationally, only 0.15% have adverse reaction.
Okay.
Not 15%, not 1.5%, but 0.15%. So the reactions that people can get or have are minuscule, and they haven't lasted more than 48 hours. I did see online the situation with the nurse that had Bell palsy that was circulated, but there's no definitive medical link between Bell palsy, which is usually caused by a virus and will dissipate about 6 months later, and the COVID. The COVID vaccination is not a virus at all. So there's no medical connection whatsoever.
Okay.
It's unfortunate that happened to her, but the fact of the matter is we have given the vaccination to 2.1 million Americans. 40,000 were tested before it came out, and they got the emergency approval from the CDC. 0 died. 0. Today, there are over 340,000 Americans that have died from COVID-19. And unfortunately, disproportionately, those are Black and brown Americans.
Wow.
So you have one side take the vaccination, maybe 0.15% of the time, you may have an adverse reaction that dissipates within 48 hours, or you can die from COVID-19. I would take the vaccination.
Well, and I think this is actually a great place to bring Ali into this conversation. Ali, your company and you are helping with the clinical trials for this, right? And it's not one vaccine we're talking about anymore. There's multiple vaccines coming down the pipeline, and it's your job to check for safety, efficacy, these type of things. How's that endeavor going? Because like George was saying, we've heard about these negative impacts, 0.15%. We've heard about them. But they're what's shown in the media, because, again, this is one of the things. Sometimes I think it feels like it's blown out of proportion, but at the same time, those are the images we're seeing. There is a bunch of vaccines coming down the pipeline. Tell us about that.
There are. And first, this is an amazing opportunity that the Loretto Hospital and the Austin community are able to receive as a result of George Miller and his leadership team looking at how we're going to address disparities in healthcare. And Loretto is one of the first community hospitals to actually offer multiple clinical trials that have been ongoing since July that look to treat patients who have had COVID with a number of antiviral medications, and then upcoming clinical trials. And to answer your question, there are over 40 vaccines that are being developed. Many companies around the United States and the world are developing vaccines, and all will be needed to treat this global pandemic. And the Loretto Hospital, under George Miller's leadership, it has successfully worked with pharmaceutical industries to bring those clinical trials to the Loretto Hospital. And we're very fortunate and very happy with the opportunities we're going to be giving to the community.
So, Dr. Ali, let me ask you a question. You just mentioned 40 vaccines. Are all the vaccines the same, or are they different vaccines? I want to clear that up just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, they're different. I mean, in the sense that they all have the basic result of protecting the community, protecting the public from the pandemic. But, they have different ways that they basically protect the body, but none of them are any less safe than the ones that are out now, as some of them have advantages to the ones that are out now, in that they don't have to be stored in minus 80 degrees temperature. Other vaccines being developed, you only have to receive the dose once. With the current two, Pfizer and Moderna, that are out now, you have to receive a second dose of the vaccine about 3 weeks after the first one to get the full immunity. So, we're going to have many options. Physicians are going to have many options in treating patients. We're going to have many vaccines that can get to all corners of the United States and the world to treat this pandemic.
Ali, let me ask you this, because I know right now first responders, doctors, nurses are getting this. So it's they have, better access. They're in the hospital anyways. Do you find compliance issues with these vaccines that you need to have two dosages? And how does that kind of play into, the efficacy of these vaccines?
Well, I mean, George can speak to the compliance within the hospital. What I can say with respect to the efficacy is that you do have to take both doses. That's part of the development of these first two vaccines and the research that was done, the studies that were conducted to confirm that to get that 95% effective rate, which we all want to have, that level of protection, you have to take both doses. So most of them are, people are probably just being eligible, those who got the first dose, to take the second dose, and then they will be fully protected.
Okay. I want everybody to remember this is the Santita Jackson show this morning. But at the same time, Dr. Ali, I appreciate George Miller also putting them numbers out there, because I was not aware that you had some, put it like this, I think George talked about 40,000 people were tested with the vaccine, and the results were pretty good. Am I right, George? As you talked about, people were okay. The vaccine worked for about 40,000 people before the CDC actually passed this or made it where people can take the vaccine. It's true, though, George, that people were tested, because a lot of people in the community, like in the African-American community, Hispanic community, and just all communities, people just don't know I don't want to use the word safe how safe the vaccine is, but was it tested? That's a big question. So maybe we can bring a few more details out about the pre-testing before they administer the vaccine to the public at large.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about it, but Dr. Ali is the expert, our partner at Affinity Health of clinical trials. But I will say this, yes, because of the safety effect that the CDC and FDA requires for a drug to go to the public, 40,000 people were used in the testing prior to being given emergency approval by the FDA and the CDC. Okay. 40,000. And again, I need to emphasize, one of the leading scientists and researchers that helped invent the vaccination was an African American woman, Dr. Kizzy Colbert. She led the effort for the NIH, and they were required to test African Americans as well. And one of the partnerships we have with Dr. Ali is that we are FDA approved to do double-blinded clinical trials before any drug can be introduced or vaccination can be introduced in America, it must go through a rigorous testing period. And that's why for a very long time, they did test that on 40,000 Americans. Since that time, 2.1 million Americans have received the vaccination, 0 deaths, and only 0.15% adverse reactions. And the other point that I want to make is it's called COVID-19.
Yes.
It's because there have been 18 other COVID have been around since 2005. So the reason we're able to develop a vaccination so quickly is because they've been studying it in the United States since 2005.
Okay.
And that's the message and the point I want to make.
That's very important. We appreciate that information. Really, really.
Oh, no, absolutely. You are listening to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Raza Siddiqui, Tio Hardiman. We're joined again by Loretto Hospital President George Miller and Ali Ahmad with Affinity Health, who are helping us dissect what's happening. And one of the things we want to talk about is what are some of the challenges you are going to face, George, in terms of coming up here? I mean, we have seen that silver lining, but really, what are some of the challenges and how are you going to address them going forward at this juncture?
Well, again, we thank you for the opportunity to be on your show this morning, but it is education and the correct information. While the internet is a wonderful tool and we can look up and get wonderful information, also it is just as bad with misinformation, and that's the thing that we want to clear up. The vaccination is the clearly defined method to cure and to avoid getting this dreaded disease. Again, 19 million Americans have COVID. That's a fact. 19 million. By taking the vaccination will keep you from getting very sick, and 2, it'll keep you from spreading it. In LA right now, in LA, California, there are no hospital beds because
I heard about that.
Disease. Yes, it's a fact. There are no beds.
Wow.
You can't argue. People believe there's a hoax about COVID-19. You can't get a hospital bed. So for no other disease can you get in the hospital because of this dreaded disease. And we're going to need about 70% of Americans that have taken the vaccination for herd immunity to keep the rest of us from plaguing. And again, you mentioned the topic.
And you know what? That is going to be good information for us to be talking about in a little bit here. Our phones are lighting up, and we invite you guys to continue to calling in. And we are going to discuss these very important topics as we come back from this commercial break.
Listen to the Tom Hartman radio program every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Rick Unger.
Unless you want to see elections that continue to mirror what we saw in 2016 and 2020, where it could go either way, given the year and given the candidates, I have to suggest you begin to place the party's focus where it used to be, which is on working class Americans.
Rick Unger. Weekdays at 5 p.m. right here on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey Illinois, Brian T. here, and though I may play a doctor on TV, when it comes to the coronavirus, I'm not playing. Look, I get it, you're cooped up, but please, stay the course and don't go out if you don't have to. So our doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, and everyone on the front lines can continue to be our heroes. Be a hero yourself, do your part and stay home.
Sponsored by the Illinois Department of Public Health and IEMA, Illinois Emergency Management Agency, aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Inbound Kennedy Expressway at Belmont, there was a crash in the express lanes. It quickly cleared. Our travel time remains 20 minutes, so O'Hare to downtown, locals or express. The outbound side is 20 minutes as well. On the Eisenhower, it's a 28-minute trip, 390 to downtown. Outbound the same. On Cicero Avenue, south of the Ike, there was a light pole down near 5th Avenue. That's all cleared. Everything is open again on Cicero in both directions. On the Stevenson, it's a 28-minute cruise, the Veterans Memorial Tollway to Lakeshore Drive. Bryant, 14 minutes from 95th to downtown. In Niles, there is a collision northbound Caldwell before Chewy. That's blocking the left lane on Caldwell. That's traffic. I'm Chip Talamonte.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Prescription products require an online physician consultation and are only available if the physician determines a prescription is appropriate. 90-day money-back guarantee available for finasteride only. Subscription required. See website for full details and important safety information.
Maybe you've noticed thinning hair. Maybe you're wondering if you'll inherit your dad's bald spot. It doesn't have to be destiny. With Hims, you can get doctor-trusted treatment to tackle your hair loss sent right to your door. Just answer some questions online and get connected with a licensed medical provider to figure out what's right for you. And when you go to forhims.com/growth, you can get that first expert consultation for free. Hims has everything from Luxe thickening shampoo to FDA-approved, clinically proven prescription pills to help stop loss and even regrow hair. If prescribed, it's shipped right to you. No waiting weeks for an appointment, no pharmacies, no trying to figure out what actually works alone. Get years of confidence for less than $1 per day. Get your free visit at forhims.com/growth. If you're not happy with the results in 90 days, Hims can give you a full refund. Go to forhims.com/growth for your free visit. forhims.com/growth.
If you purchased Roundup brand ready-to-use weed and grass killer or concentrate products for personal use, you may be entitled to payment from a proposed class action settlement. A complete list of the relevant Roundup products is available at roundupwgksettlement.com. This settlement is about product labeling, not personal injury, so physical injury is not necessary to make a claim. The deadline to file a claim is February 16th, 2021. Visit roundupwgksettlement.com for more information.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
You are listening to the Santita Jackson Show. Filling in today is Raza, Siddiqui, and Tio Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman. We have some very important conversation coming up here. We are currently talking with George Miller from Loretto Hospital and Ali Ahmad with Affinity Health, who are administering the vaccines, right? And who are administering vaccine trials to keep this pipeline going.
Yes.
These are people that we've talked to before who have come on to talk about and explain to the community any questions that they might have. We have a couple people. The boards are lighting up. I know you had some questions. Let's first get to our first question here.
Yeah, Connie, you on the air? Connie?
Yes. Oh, yes. I didn't know it was me.
Connie, it's absolutely you. You're with Raza, Siddiqui, and Tio Hardiman on the Santita Jackson Show. Look forward to answering your questions. You're also on with George and Ali, Loretto Hospital.
Thank you so much. To both of the hosts. Two questions. Number one, I heard about the doctor in Indiana who lost her life while she was trying to get her best treatment. The president of the hospital said she was intimidating them. They felt threatened by her. And so that's not just racism. I see that as abuse. They intended not to help her. That's. And number two, Mr. Miller said that the vaccination was going to be a cure for this virus. And I want you to clarify that. I'm sure he didn't mean that.
Connie, do me a favor. Say that one more time so we can get clarity there. What were you saying about the vaccination being a cure? Say that one more time.
I heard Mr. Miller say that the vaccination was going to rid us of the virus.
Okay.
And I just want him to clarify that.
Well,
and to say, and the doctor is not a stigma. They took her life. That's abuse. They actually killed her at the Indiana hospital.
Georgia, and I want to ask about that too. In terms of the patient's Bill of Rights, the level of dignity that these patients should have, why should it have to go to a Facebook Live? Why does it have to be a patient who's suffering having to explain what they are dealing with for any action to be taken? Isn't there a guarantee with these patients' Bill of Rights? Can you explain to us how that typically works? And then I'll follow up with that question of vaccination, if you wouldn't mind. I know I put a lot on you, but these are important things for us all to know about how hospital administrations typically work.
Yes, I'm happy to, and I'm glad for both of the questions. There is a Bill of Rights, and the patient has a right, legal right to be involved in their care. And the interesting thing about this issue, we're always taught to get more education. This was a physician who knew what to ask for, and she was denied appropriate care. Now, I don't want to speculate what the situation was as she just asked us the question, but there is a Bill of Rights. Patients have a right to be involved in the care. They have a right to ask questions, and they have a right to get the appropriate treatment. But we have to be clear, and we have to call it like it is. There is racism that is rampant in society of America, and there certainly is racism in my profession very clearly. I try to speak truth to power and call it out like it is, quite frankly. And we have to do a better job in dealing with the inequities and disparities of healthcare. There is no reason that African-American women are 2.5 times likely to die in childbirth than white women. There's no excuse for that. Or for Latino women, 6 times more likely to get cervical cancer. There is no excuse for that in the same society, in the same system versus white women. That is just blatant racism. We have to call it out as it is. The statement that I made concerning the vaccination being a cure, you're correct. It's not a cure, but it does alleviate the problem. I use the analogy, if you step on a rusty nail, you will go to the emergency room of the hospital and get a tetanus shot, which is a vaccination so that you don't get the tetanus problem that will be eradicated by the vaccination. So the vaccination it protects you from getting the disease, and then it also protects you from spreading to someone else.
And that actually brings about a second question to you.
Yes.
I'm going to let you ask that because I know we've had a lot of viewer questions.
Yeah, I have a lot of people on my Facebook page. Edward Jenkins has a question for you, Dr. Ali or either George. If you've had COVID before, should you still take the vaccination if you've had COVID before?
The short answer is absolutely yes. If you get the COVID virus, your immunity that you build up after you get the infection only lasts really, and the data shows maybe about 3 months or so. So absolutely, when you free yourself of the symptoms, you're kind of cured of those symptoms, you should take the vaccine. Yeah.
So wait, so I'm confused. The antibodies last for 3 months, or the vaccine itself lasts for 3 months upon getting it?
No, your antibody response. So your body's ability to produce antibodies to fight off the virus. When you get infected, you produce those antibodies, but the data is showing that the antibodies actually reduce in your body over a short period of time. If you take the vaccine, then your immunity is much longer. The data is probably showing that you may not need to get revaccinated for another year or two.
Okay. Let me ask another question. This is more like, I'm not going to say devil advocate's question, but I'll ask a question. I'm speaking about myself now. Since COVID-19 is surfaced, I must admit I haven't even caught a cold. So COVID-19 has me very scared. So let's say I'm a healthy guy, haven't had any health conditions at all. And, basically, I've been kind of procrastinating in regards to taking the vaccination. This information helped me out a little bit more today because now I'm leaning towards taking the vaccination without a doubt. And I guess my question, Brother Raza, would be, what if you're just healthy, man, and you just don't have no issues at all, and you're wearing your mask and your gloves, and you just want to just be cool? You don't want to, you don't want to take anything to have any type of foreign, like medicines in your body and stuff like that. What would you say to a guy like me? I'm speaking for a lot of other people too. What would you say to a guy like me that thinks like this? I'm healthy. I'm doing everything right. I'm taking my vitamins. I'm getting my rest. I'm eating right. So why do I need a vaccine? I'm not even going around nobody. I'm wearing a mask every day and I'm wearing my gloves. What would you say to a guy like me, Dr. Ali or George? What would you say?
I think nobody wanted to take that one.
No. You mentioned both our names, so we're both waiting for each other to talk.
That's right.
I'll start and just say that, absolutely, when you are social distancing, when you're wearing a mask, when you're protecting yourself, we've seen the regular flu cases go down. Many doctors have said it. They're getting fewer patients coming in with common cases of the flu. But when we think of the severe implications of the virus, the fact that over 300,000 people have died, you're taking a risk. And you're taking a risk that even if you protect yourself, if you do come, if you're walking down the street and somebody just bumps into you through no fault of your own, and they have the virus, they've come less than 6 feet away from you, you're at risk of getting the virus, even if you're protecting yourself. So you have to make sure that you are protecting yourself from a pandemic that has caused the entire world to basically stop, for months this year. That you want to protect yourself. And so we would recommend that everyone who hears this, and I want to make a couple quick points. Every single drug that has ever been produced has gone through clinical trials to prove that it's safe and that it's effective before the public gets it. And so this vaccine went through the same process. No shortcuts were taken. And second, when you think of vaccines, think of the polio pandemic that occurred in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And a vaccine was developed, and people now take it as routinely as, your normal vaccinations you have to take before kids start at school. So vaccinations are, people forget or tend to, forget the fact that vaccines are very common aspects of our life, that people take it routinely and have to take it before children are admitted into school.
That's really good. I definitely need to hear that.
Absolutely. You're listening to the Santita Jackson Show. You have Tio, Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman, and Raza Siddiqui. We're joined by George Miller and Ali Ahmed, Loretto Hospital and Affinity Health. We are answering questions. Tio just asked, if I wear my mask, if I walk on the grass barefoot, if I'm taking all the precautions, do I need this? And it sounds like the answer is a resounding yes. Because
and plus I have another person here, Deonde Whitfield, George Miller. She's saying she want to thank you over there in the Loretto Hospital. She's an Austin resident. She wanted me to let you know she appreciate what you're doing. So I have another question here. This is really good. Okay. Now it's been said that the virus spreads more in the cold weather versus the warmer or hotter weather. And then also I've been looking on the world scope as well, and I'm noticing there's not a lot of cases of COVID-19 on the continent of Africa. So what do you got to say about that, George? And not that Africa is any different from any other place in the world, but right now, with Ebola hit Africa some time ago, so this pandemic is not hitting Africa on a high level. It may not be hitting other countries. I haven't heard a lot in India. I haven't heard a lot of other countries as well.
Well, I think India did get hit pretty hard. And they've been, from what I saw on some of the videos, they've been mandating pretty strictly, with the police being very proactive enforcing that. But again, this is what I have seen and heard. But the question on Africa, I know my wife had brought that up as well. And what's that all about?
Yeah. So the weather question first, George, and then Africa. What's happening in Africa?
Okay. Two things. The three leading states in America right now for COVID is California, LA. There are no hospital beds.
Wow.
Texas, and Florida. I think those are warm weather states.
Yes.
So the disease has spread in both cold weather and warm weather. The issue about India, it's spreading there. India has both climates with warm and cold weather. In the north of India and in the south, it's just about equal as far as the number of cases between the two areas. Same thing in the United States. In Africa, there's still COVID there. There's actively COVID there. We don't hear as much about that because of some of the populations are more remotely spread out. But there is COVID there in Africa. We just not have heard as much about it, obviously, as in Europe and Britain, France, Italy, and the other nations. But the differences for those who have been successful, like New Zealand, like Australia, and even South Korea, is the fact that they all listened and had one unified voice as far as wearing masks, social distancing, and washing their hands as a nation together. We still have people walking around here that feels that we're somehow invading their right to wear a mask.
Yes.
And that's why it is spreading so. I mean, they wear a seatbelt in the car. And we used to have about 50,000 deaths before seatbelts were mandated, and we've cut the number of deaths in automobiles now with not only seatbelts but with airbags to the lowest levels in 50 years. It is a precaution. That's what the vaccination will do. Will keep us from spreading this dread disease. Because without the vaccination, we had 1 million people get infected in the month of December.
Wow.
And they're saying January will be worse because of the holiday of Christmas and New Year's.
George, and I'm going to actually ask you about that as well. I mean, we've talked about how liberties sometimes get in the way of public health, anti-vaccine movements, and just people not understanding or wanting to be mandated how to do things. I'm going to kind of turn it around and ask people within your own staff or people in healthcare, has there been any resistance in that field? Is it compulsory? Is it mandated? Or have you even heard doctors and nurses saying, you know what, I'm not 100% on board with this? How is it in your industry?
Well, in the industry, we represent society as a whole. And we still use education. We do not mandate it. We didn't mandate it at Loretto Hospital. We don't mandate it that everybody is required to take it because people have rights and they have the freedom to make their own choice. We try to use education and information. And as Dr. Ali clearly said, that every drug that has ever come out, including every vaccination, goes through a rigorous testing methodology. And that methodology for COVID-19 vaccination was 40,000 people were tested first. 40,000, and they were documented. There's a rigorous documentation that has to take place and an observation of those patients, and it was done before it came out. The reason we need emergency approval from the FDA to give the vaccination is because of the number of deaths that were going on in America and around the world. There has not been a disease like this magnitude in over 100 years. So we had to do something to change it.
Yeah, because you had the Spanish.
Go back to normal.
Yeah, because you had the Spanish flu back in 1918. Am I correct about that, George?
Yes.
Yeah, the Spanish flu. Now, do we know how many people died of the Spanish flu back then? That was another. Was that considered a worldwide pandemic as well, or just did it take place? It was.
No, Right. It was a worldwide pandemic. I'll ask Dr. Ali if he remembers the numbers. I don't recall the numbers of deaths, but it was a worldwide pandemic at that particular time. It was just not in the United States. It was worldwide.
And I'm gonna layer on the questions to Ali too, because again, we talked about how there was an expedited FDA approval because again, there was a need. There was obviously a lot of people infected, but again, the clinicians were not able to work in ideal conditions, right? And again, you had certain even within government administration, certain pressures put on. Kind of talk about, at least just like any clinical trial you've ever had to deal with in the past, just in terms of the pressures upon you, and how do you put out an expedited vaccine under these pressures and be able to assure people that this is still up to the standards that have been exercised by the FDA in the past?
It's a very good question, and it's a question that many people ask: is why should I take this vaccine? I think that there wasn't, that this was expedited, pushed through by the government, and it's not a safe vaccine. And I want to assure everyone listening that that is not the case. That the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that mandates all research to get drugs approved or vaccines approved, did not take a single shortcut. And then the next question is, then how did it happen so quickly? It happened so quickly because everyone prioritized getting the data reviewed quickly. There was a lot of technology that has advanced that allowed us to conduct these clinical trials, get the data to the FDA. The FDA reviewed the data with their top physicians and top scientists and determined that this vaccine is safe and that it is over 95% effective. So no shortcuts were taken at all.
Listening to the Santita Jackson Show. This is Raza Siddiqui on with Tio Hardiman. We are again exploring the whole. Let's take a step back, right, Tio? The whole purpose of the show is not only to describe what we have, where we have come. 2020 is ending. 2021 is coming up. We want to talk about how we project and what's going on in the future, right? So I want to take a step back and Tio, maybe you can ask this question to George, to Ali. We'll start with George about what are the hopes for the future, right? I know we were talking about before some of the challenges, but the hopes, right? That's what really keeps us going.
Yeah, I was thinking on the same line. I was going to ask George or Ali, what are the next steps? Next steps and the hopes. Are we very optimistic about moving into the year 2021 as long as everybody adheres to the regulations, protect themselves? And what's next for Loretto Hospital and Affinity Healthcare? So that was a real good question there. So anybody can take that question. I just want to put it out there.
Let's start with George.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Well, the good news is there is hope. 45 days ago, before the vaccination was released, our nurses, our doctors, our team members who work in the trenches are exhausted. It's been difficult. We still take care of patients who still don't believe that the COVID was real until they get it, and they don't understand how they got it. And the information that is needed across the nation should come from one source. In my mind, the federal government should have led the effort on a continuous basis. I have a saying that leadership is as leadership does. And we should have had leaders standing firm and saying to mitigate this disease until the vaccination was here, wear your mask. Everybody wear your mask. Practice social distancing and wash your hands often. That was a clear, definitive way that we could have avoided, probably would have saved 100,000 lives had we done that back in March. Since we didn't, we now have the vaccination. That gives us hope that we can hopefully get everyone to take the vaccination. We need 100 million Americans to take that. Okay. And there is hope we can get back to normal.
And then quickly, one of my guys, Creator Scott, provided me with some numbers. He said the Spanish flu lasted 2 years. Over 20 million people died, affected over 500 million from 1918 to 1920. That was pretty deep too with the Spanish flu. Just want to put that those numbers out there. And thanks to Creator Scott for doing that for me.
And I'm going to talk to Ali real quickly about, we were talking about the future, looking at 2021, but I also want to talk about some of the future in terms of some of the concerns I've had, which was people have expressed interest in these vaccines and childbirth, right? Reproduction. And this is really the future. How do you assuage those concerns, or at least address it, Ali?
Okay, so the 2 points. First off, hope. And I want to tell everyone, George Miller is a leader in the Chicago community. He is someone who 3 years ago, when he was named Chief Executive Officer of Loretto Hospital, worked with his senior management team and put together a vision to address disparities in healthcare, a vision to address the opportunity to get healthcare in broader respects of medical research, clinical trials, medical education. So it's really important to recognize that this work did not just start when a global pandemic started. This work by George and his team has been started 3 years ago. With respect to the question about, again, patient safety, reproduction, these are very common questions that are coming up. And all I can do is ensure you that the data is available. The data is out there to prove the FDA would have never approved a vaccine that had an adverse effect on a woman's ability to reproduce. It would have never produced a vaccine or allowed the approval of a vaccine without ensuring that the safety data is there. Yeah. So we can share that data. We can point anyone who contacts us to get those questions answered definitively so that you're confident that you can take this vaccine.
Yes.
Well, that sounds absolutely great. It looks like we have another caller coming in. Actually, I think this is a good time to introduce who our next segment is going to be. We talked about healthcare. We talked about what's happening, Loretto Hospital's involvement. The next hour, we're going to talk about how we look forward to community policing relationships. Tio, this is obviously a hot button issue. You've been kind of on the forefront about increasing that communication, increasing that basically partnership and trust, right?
Yes.
Tell us about some of your experiences, because that's what we're going to be talking with Regina, Brent, and that's what we're going to be talking about for the next hour.
No, basically, Chicago's under siege. You know, we got this pandemic going on. We got gun violence as an epidemic. And, you know, George and Dr. Ali, you know, I put it out there some time ago that since we're protecting everybody from the pandemic, why don't we provide young kids in Chicago with bulletproof protective gear? You know what I mean? Like a bulletproof book bag, or either like a bulletproof baseball cap. I think it's important because an epidemic, you know, they a lot of money is being spent on trying to reduce the gun violence, but we continue to see increases. So that's another conversation coming up in the second hour. But we got a call we want to take real quick, because out of respect for George and Ali, if we can get it in.
It looks like we,
they might
be calling in for the next hour.
Next hour.
Because again, we've got a lot to talk about here on the Santita Jackson show with Theo Hardiman and Raza Siddiqui filling in. And we look forward to continuing this conversation. Ali, George, thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to have you guys real quick, tell us again how our listeners can find out more information about what you guys are doing. Starting with George.
Well, thank you very much. We are at the forefront. Again, we're very thankful to the mayor of the city of Chicago and the director of the Chicago Department of Public Health for choosing us to receive the vaccination first. We are currently doing all of our team members, and we'll come back when we're opening up to the public when that decision is made. But we still stand ready to serve the community. We still do testing for COVID free of charge at the Loretto Hospital from 9 to 12, Monday through Friday. No appointment necessary, and you do not need a physician's order to come get tested. And we do the PCR test and try to get the results back within 48 hours.
Okay.
Fantastic. Ali?
And just very quick, if any of you have questions and want to get information about the upcoming clinical trials, vaccinations, go on to the Loretto Hospital website, which is Loretto Hospital, Loretto hospital.org. And the information will be readily available for you, and you'll get in contact with us.
Thank you both for joining us and sharing a little about the work you've been doing and kind of getting out there the message with COVID. I mean, Theo, this is something that we talk about quite often about how do we educate, how do we let people know what's going on. And so I think this was a great discussion. I know the next hour is something that you're also very excited about sharing some information about.
It's very important. So this is a Santita Jackson show, and we're glad to fill in for Santita on this New Year's Eve moment. You know,
we got to look ahead.
That's right, 8:20 a.m.
You know, we're always looking back into the world we're coming out of. It was a gloomy year, right? 2020, not really the one to write home about. I don't know if you saw that Netflix movie that they had, Death to 2020.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was a little, you know what? I actually waited up all night to watch that. Then I kind of watched it and I was like, it was okay. I don't know. But again, one of the things that it really said is you got to take a step back and look at it from a greater picture. And that's what we're really aiming to do here. We want to talk about not only what we've all experienced as a community, what we've experienced as a nation, but how we move ahead. And we're going to talk about that in the next half an hour after we come back from these commercial next hour.
Right on. Okay, good stuff.
If you can't get enough of Chicago and Illinois politics, you don't want to miss Back on the Beat with Dick Kay.
Joe that puts an end to the politics of hate. Joe that puts an end to the support for the white supremacists in this country. Joe that puts an end to the vile misinformation, the name calling, the ignorance of the pandemic. Joe with a sense of where this country needs to go.
Saturday, 1 to 4 p.m. on WCPT 820.
You have the right to know. The right to know about culture. The right to know about the economy. The right to know about technology and to know about sports. You have the right to know about education and politics and the weather. You have the right to know what's happening abroad and in your backyard. But above all else, you have the right to know that this right is under attack, and we must work to protect it. Because in order to be free, we must be informed. Understand the threats. ProtectPressFreedom.org.
Get the best sleep of your life. Helix makes personalized mattresses to fit your unique body type and sleep preferences. Go to helixsleep.com and get up to $200 off mattress orders.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. 2020 is almost over, but New Year's Eve celebrations aren't going to be as festive as they would normally be because of the coronavirus.
As the world rings in 2021, the normal New Year's celebrations will be few and far between, as officials warn against large celebrations due to the coronavirus pandemic. The annual New Year's Eve gatherings have been canceled from New York's Times Square to Sydney Harbor in Australia. On Wednesday, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti worried aloud about yet another surge of COVID-19 cases after the holidays.
We better not make New Year's another spike, because those are the things that are killing people.
Los Angeles County has now recorded more than 10,000 deaths from COVID-19. I'm Mike Gracia.
A more contagious variant of the virus has now turned up in California, but experts say this variant does not appear to be any more dangerous, and it seems as if the vaccines that are rolling out now will be effective against it.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says the new coronavirus variant will continue spreading around the country, but he and other experts say there's no reason for alarm. For starters, Fauci says nobody should be surprised there is a variant of this type of virus.
They make a living out of mutating. They love to mutate.
In a virtual chat with California Governor Gavin Newsom, Fauci says British researchers have found the variant does seem to spread faster than the virus we've been dealing with, but that doesn't mean it's any stronger.
There's no indication at all that it increases the virulence, and by virulence I mean the ability to make you sick or kill you.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
Parts of Texas and Oklahoma could get 1.5 feet of snow. The same storm is threatening to spin off tornadoes across Louisiana and Mississippi. Pope Francis is skipping New Year's celebrations due to what the Vatican says is a painful back condition. This is AP News. The entertainment industry has lost a beloved star.
Actor Dawn Wells, who played Marianne on Gilligan's Island, has died in Los Angeles of causes related to COVID-19. She was 82. I'm Margie Zarnaletta with a look at her career.
Just sit right back and you'll hear it.
While Tina Louise had the glamorous role on Gilligan's Island, Dawn Wells was the real-life beauty queen. She was Miss Nevada in the 1959 Miss America pageant. After Gilligan's Island, Wells did theater and became a teacher and motivational speaker. She embraced her past as Marianne, but admitted it sometimes typecast her. Wells said in 2001 the Gilligan's Island cast was tight because the show did not become beloved until it was syndicated.
We all bonded together because the critics hated us so much. I think the turning point came after we went off the air. I don't think we had any idea.
Margie Zarletta reporting on the death of Dawn Wells. Sales of slippers are up 70% in this stay-at-home era. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Well, it is a holiday for some, and we see that reflected in the travel times this morning on the Aidens. You're looking at 15 minutes like Cook to Montrose, same outbound. On the Kennedy, 20 minutes O'Hare to downtown, outbound it's the same. The Eisenhower, your drive time is 28 minutes, 390 to downtown, 16 from Wolf, same outbound. Stevenson, 28 minutes either way between the Veterans Memorial Tollway and Lakeshore Drive. The Ryan, 14 minutes, 95th to downtown, same outbound. I-57, 16 minutes either way between I-80 and the Verge. Bishop Ford, 13 minutes either way. Lakeshore Drive is running 24 minutes either way between Hollywood and Marquette this morning. You're taking I-65 at 41 minutes either way between the Indiana Toll Road and State Road 114. That's traffic. I'm Chip Talamonte.
Staples has everything you need to start the year right, like home office furniture, the latest tech, and organizational supplies, all at amazing prices. And now at Staples, 2021 dated desk pads are just $3.99. Offer ends 1/2/21 while supplies last. Get big savings from Staples.
Okay, we are running a car drive right now to help veterans all across America. So if you have an old car, truck, or van, even a motorcycle or an RV sitting around, you can right now give it away and help the vets. They really need your help. And your car will help support the vets and their families. And guess what? You even get a tax donation. Plus, we'll even come and pick up your car for free. And all you've got to do is pick up your phone right now and make a free call. Now is the perfect time time to do something good for the vets. Give back to the vets right now for all they've done for this country. And your old car can really help them. So call the Veterans Car Donation Program right now for free pickup of your vehicle. Help the vets and help your taxes at the same time. Call right now.
800-253-1892. 800-253-1892. 800-253-1892. That's 800-253-1892.
Tom Hartman.
I hadn't realized how just wired I have been for the last 4 years. I don't think there's a better word to describe it. The evil of the Trump administration is going to end. No more kids in cages, no more crapping on our allies and sucking up to dictators and strongmen, no more continuous lies. I mean, literally daily lies.
The Tom Hartman radio program. Weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, where facts matter. WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
You're listening to the Santita Jackson Show, filling in today, Raza, Siddiqui, and Tio, Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman. You're in the second hour. We're going to dedicate this hour to talking about not only Chicago gun violence, but police and community trust. We spent the last hour talking about healthcare in 2020, the challenges with COVID-19, and how the industry is going to look ahead, how they're going to bridge that kind of depth, right, where they want to reach out to the community. We're going to spend an hour now talking about how police can rebuild their relationships with the community. Teal.
Yeah, right now in the year 2020, everybody should understand we've had close to 800 homicides, 4,000 people shot, a little bit close to 1,200 carjackings, 51 unsolved homicides of women in Chicago. Kids have been shot. 2020 has been a pretty bad year when it comes down to gun violence compared to other years. So I believe the city needs all hands on deck and as much help as we can really get in the city right now. So it's important to have a discussion. Then you kind of hit on police relationships, because the police relationships have been a little kind of messed up to a degree, but there's hope we can kind of bridge that gap eventually. Many years ago they had the CAPS program, and they had a situation where the community was trying to partner with the police to a degree, and the police were reaching out to the community on a higher level. So a lot of changes need to take place in order to get it right, so to speak. Because right now you have a consent decree. I want everybody to understand this. You have a consent decree, which is mandated by the federal government, the Department of Justice. But Chicago has missed 70% of the deadlines on police reform in Chicago. So who's responsible for that? Now, this is the Santita Jackson Show. This morning, we want to thank Santita. We're filling in for Santita Jackson. But what more can be done, because we're losing too many lives, and there seems to be a dark cloud over Chicago. Because, I live on the south side of Chicago now, and you ride around southwest side. I lived on the west side. I'm a west sider, all over Chicago, east side, north side. But there appears to be a dark cloud over Chicago. And when you look at these high homicide numbers, it's totally unacceptable. It's a lot of money being spent. The police have a $1.7 billion budget. A lot of money is being spent all over the place to reduce gun violence. And then I just see, the same things are happening time and time again. We must get Chicago under 300 homicides.
Well, and Tio, you've been on the grassroots, right. You've been on the streets kind of building these bridges and kind of getting and facilitating that. Right. You're not alone. There's other organizations as well that are out there. And we have two people from Unity Partnership, Regina, Brent, and Shoaib Kadri, who are going to talk about this, and they're going to talk about what the challenges are. I mean, Clearly the mayor is dealing with a lot right now because, again, of some of this distrust that's been created. And these are obviously challenges that we need to figure out how to face.
Well, when Superintendent Brown first arrived in Chicago, you can look this up in the archives of the media. Yeah. He stated that he would get homicides under 300. And I thought, to the back of my head, I said, you know what? I wish him the best. Just put it like that. And I did meet with him a couple of times, but this is Chicago. One must understand the concrete jungle in Chicago if you really want to bring forth changes in reducing the gun violence. But so today, I want to dedicate this show really to not necessarily criticizing, but more so looking at solutions. But we must stop playing games with the people, Raza. We have to stop playing games because too many people are losing their lives right now.
There's too much
It's just too much at stake right now.
Absolutely. So let's bring in Regina, Brent. Regina, you're with Unity Partnership. Tell us, what exactly is that? What is the goal, and what can you do that that so far has been very elusive to the city of Chicago and in general across this country in terms of race relations with the police?
So good morning, Raza. Good morning, Mr. Hardiman. Thank you guys for inviting us on the Santita show. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Yes. And so my name is Regina Brent. I'm president and founder of Unity Partnership. This organization was created based out of the fact that we have seen several different types of injustices all across America. I also have Shoaib Kadri on here. He's one of our law enforcement committee members who works diligently with the organization. He's also from ICN. The other problem is that we decided we would create this organization based on the fact that we saw Sandra Bland, we saw Trayvon Martin, we saw Eric Gardner, and it went on and on and on. And even out here in our locality, we saw several different instances, whereas there was a woman by the name of Cynthia Cummings shot down on the highway after she was construed as being a mental patient,
right,
and also probably drug addicted on the highway. The first Black woman I ever seen close to home being shot down by police after several police officers from that area tried to control the situation. Just one came along and just blew her away. That startled me. So I spoke with the gentleman by the name of Dave Anderson out of Blau. He was chief at the time. We were at Sandra Bland's funeral. And I knew then by the looks on his face and how emotional he was about it, he was quite disturbed. Without saying, we got together, we had coffee. He went and got his people. I came and got other people from the community. Mr. Ron Allen, the co-founder of this organization, he is now deceased at this time of the year. He was killed in Chicago in the Austin district, but he was working diligently trying to collaborate the community with policing. And so that's how Unity Partnership was originated, based out of the inequities, the injustices, and all the other wrongs that have been done by the hands of police officers.
Yes.
And Tio, that's just amazing that it took this tragedy and law enforcement and somebody who saw a need just were able to come together and create something. I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes out of these dreadful situations, there's at least hope that comes out of it. There is an organization out there. But what I really want to see, Regina, is what have you guys been able to accomplish, and has there been obstruction to any of this work?
So yes, when Chief Anderson and I came together with the people from the community and other law enforcement chiefs out of Darien, Mr. Greg Thomas, we had Chief Bob Marshall out of Naperville. We started with just a few chiefs in the surrounding locations of DuPage County. The other part about it is we reached all the way out to the south suburbs. Chief Mitchell Davis out of Hazel Crest. He joined our effort, and we had so many others from Glendale Heights and Lombard and other places. We've been doing this for 4 years. We don't put the cart before the horse out here. We understand that African Americans who live out here have encountered racism. They have encountered walking while black, talking while black, and riding while black. And so while we look to be Pleasantville out here, it's not that pleasant when you're afraid when your black man goes to work and gets pulled over by police, when your son goes to school and he's put on Craigslist as a big black slave, when you are in school with your children and your children are cited by some of the school resource officers right away, they're handcuffed, they're booked for just minor things that happen in school, that everyday problems occur while you're in school as a teenager. So we're working in collaboration and collaboration with several of the chiefs out here on a monthly basis. We have a police reform proposal called Recommendations for Improved Police Community. We're trying to address many different situations, such as body cams. Some of the organizations out here don't have body cams. We're looking at citizens review boards. We're looking at licensing and certification. It's one thing for a doctor to commit some type of misconduct during his service on a patient and he gets food right away. But when a police officer kills somebody or miswrongs somebody or perform misconduct against a citizen, he's not held liable. He's put on desk duty, or she's put on desk duty.
Right.
And they remain on their job. And we as taxpayers have to pay for the lawsuit. And then the victim is left out there without any conversation at all.
No,
and
that's,
so we're also,
Regina, just let me say this. Regina, let me slow you down just a little bit. Yeah. I really appreciate what you're talking about, because I'm still one of the guys that stood up many years ago against police brutality and excessive force. And a lot of times when I was speaking up, I was out there by myself and people thought something was wrong with me. But once the Department of Justice came to Chicago and investigated the Chicago Police Department, we found out there were a lot of skeletons in the closet, because CPD was ranked as one of the most corrupt police departments in the United States. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-police. I'm only anti-excessive force and police brutality. So I'm so glad to see so many new people stepping up to the plate, because I was out there getting it in. You know, all the protests, demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations. God allowed me to be a voice of the voiceless at that time, because if you notice, many years ago, before Laquan McDonald, we've had so many Laquan McDonalds in Chicago, it doesn't make any sense. And Cook County was ranked as the most corrupt when it came down to wrongful confessions, wrongful conviction. We was ranked #1 in the United States. So the work you're doing, Regina, is much needed.
I'd like to get back to Laquan McDonald. I know who you are. I'm so proud of you, and it was so great to see you the other day at Anjanette Young's protest.
Yes.
When Laquan McDonald was killed, and I say killed, it was a terrorist attack on that child, and no woman, no man should have to look at their son or daughter lying on the street being shot 16 times. The DuPage missionary women and the greater missionary women from the south side of the AME churches and myself came to City Hall, and we protest. And I talked to a couple of the aldermen and also Rahm Emanuel's assistant to let them know I worked at the Attorney General's office for 30 years, and I do know when they're trying to pull a wool over your heads by a cover-up. And I didn't appreciate it at all, but I have to say this. The bottom line is we had to come from western suburbs, because what happens to you happens to me. We all are in this together. We all have to stand together, and that's why Mr. Shoaib Kadri is on the line with me. He's Muslim. And any persons of color, wherever we are, we can catch hell. And that is why we must stand together. We must join one another. The women must be concerned about Anjanette Young, because it is important to know that one day it can happen to one of us. And so, yes, Laquan McDonald, I met his uncle, Reverend Hunter, who came out to the western suburbs to get support for that particular issue. But I do appreciate what you're doing, and I do know what you're doing. And yes, you stand in this work alone. But you know what? If you stand for anything, you'll stand for nothing.
That's right. That's right.
So it's useless for us not to stand up against these ills of society when they happen. I'd also like to say something about the civilian complaint process. A lot of our people are afraid of that process because of the affidavit. If you trip up and say something wrong, filing a complaint against the officer, you can get very much penalized for that.
Okay.
And so we're working to eradicate that. We want police accountability. We want no-knock warrants eradicated and knock announcement warrants eradicated until they get a better formula or resources how they can handle those things. Because right now it's only impactful to African Americans. They don't care whether we're naked, clothed, or anything else. But I'm going to let you guys get to that.
Oh, yes.
You're listening to the Santita Jackson Show. We are Tio Hardiman, Raza Siddiqui, talking again with Regina, Brent, and also Shoaib about police accountability, about building these police relationships. We were in a situation, and I remember talking about this kind of at length with Laquan McDonald, where this attention came from an independent journalist, Brandon Smith, I believe it was his name, who did independent research, filed for the FOIAs to get this information out there, to put it in the forefront, to make it a topic of discussion. It was something that wasn't easily visible. It was something that had to be fought for to even realize what had happened, what had transpired in this situation. Something very, very similar. with Anjanette Young, right? I mean, this was something that the city did not make very transparent, did not make very clear what had happened to this young lady. And it was something that again, this time it took a media outlet to put it out there to explain what had happened. And obviously part of it becomes the story becomes the process to get the transparency, the process to understand what has happened. I think that was fundamentally, and Shoaib, I'm going to bring you into this. There is distrust because of maneuvers like this sometimes, right? How does the organization address this? How do you fix it? How do you build that trust when these actions continue to happen? Shoaib, we're going to get to you on this one.
Correct. As you rightly mentioned, there's so many cases which has built this mistrust between the community, especially the marginalized community and law enforcement. So that's where Unity Partnership, we said, we have to find a solution by working together to identify gaps where we can build that trust. And it's a long process, because the mistrust has been over so many years that it takes time. It will take time to actually, build more trust. So what we started doing was we started having different events, along with the law enforcement, the local law enforcement in the DuPage County area. We with the youth from the marginalized communities. So for the past few years, that's what we've been doing. We've been having many events, many seminars on traffic stop, workshops. But now, since George Floyd, we decided that we have to take this up to the next level, where we start identifying specific areas where we can build this trust. And in order to do that, we said we want to recommend, certain policies that the police, should follow in order to build this police-community relations. So basically, what we're calling this report that we are working on is we're saying recommendations for improved police-community relations in partnership with the police chief, collectively working to eliminate police brutality and systemic racism in police agencies.
Okay. Well, see, this is the thing, too. I want us to kind of hit on some of this gun violence as well, because you all believe that the situation with distrust of the police is having an impact on the ability to reduce gun violence in Chicago, because I've been trying to meet with Mayor Lightfoot myself for some time now, and I have a restorative justice model, plus I'm the president of Violence Interrupters Incorporated. I'm not the only solution, but I'm part of the solution. But I haven't got any type of response, but the bottom line, because I'm not looking for no money from the mayor, I'm not looking for a contract. I just want to provide it with my perspective on how to reduce gun violence, because I'm a proven leader in that particular field. So do you all believe that the distrust of the police has a direct impact on the inability to reduce gun violence in Chicago? Is that a factor, Regina, or either? How you pronounce that?
Shoaib, but let's start with Regina on that one.
Okay, let's start with Regina, then we get to our calls.
So, Tim, I do think that with all that you've said, the distrust with gun violence in Chicago, I'm born and raised out of Chicago, been there all my life. My heart is that skyline. So I'm not I'm not someone who is not privy to know how Chicago runs, the roots of it, or any of that. I just moved out here in the western suburbs back in 2000. But I say this, it's a systematic situation. Anytime you wake up to boarded up homes that are condemned, anytime you don't have community social service like we had back in the day. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, grew up in Robert Taylor. We had social centers. We had libraries. We had people in our community of substance. We woke up every morning to someone who was responsible for you, even if your parents were not at home. So all of 50 schools being closed in Chicago is nothing but a setup systematically for failure. So if all I can do is get guns and drugs in my community, what do you think is going to happen?
Okay.
So what has to happen is that there has to be accountability and responsibility from the top. That means the governor all the way down to the mayor of that city and any other city that's involved. Because if you look at every city that has Martin Luther King's name on it, it has been taken down systematically. So it's on you, and it's on me, and it's on Roger, and it's on Shoaib, and it's on Unity Partnership to make sure that we educate our children in the school system. Let them know about their history, their Black history. Let them know that guns are not the way. We need nonviolence universities in our own city that Martin Luther King practiced back in the civil rights movement. We need to make that applicable to ourselves as an African-American race. And then we can get rid of those guns. We need $15 an hour is what Reverend Pastor Miller out of AME, DuPage AME Church out here in Laos, has lobbied for months and months. $15 an hour for the disadvantaged people that have to work every day.
Q, how often have we talked about that? That really, this is all part of a larger problem where sometimes the needs aren't addressed, right? A lot of this ties into the economic impacts, the disenfranchisements. We've talked about this in the community because really the opportunities aren't there. We've talked about anti-recidivism program. We talk about programs where you give them opportunities, you give jobs, you give these good rates, because these are all what leads up to those relationships. These are all what kind of leads up to are some of the roots of what happened.
Well, you know, everybody needs an opportunity to make good of their lives. And like the young lady Regina is saying, when you wake up and you walk down the street, abandoned buildings everywhere, storefronts closed down. If you travel to East St. Louis, Illinois, it looks like they're still from the 1970s in East St. Louis because there's been no redevelopment, no renovation of downtown East St. Louis. You look at some areas in Chicago, like 114th in Michigan. Yeah. It's like a ghost town. You look at 79th and South Shore. It's like a ghost town. Some parts of the West Side. So, you know, we need to kind of build some type of hope, you know, still some hope and some optimism with the people of Chicago, especially in the African-American community, due to the fact that there's a lot of despair and hopelessness.
May I also interject something about building trust with the police?
Yes.
My nephew, Jason Maiden, he was a former designer for Michael Jordan. He is out on his own now. He has an organization or a business called Superheroic. Jason donated 7,000 pairs of shoes to Unity Partnership, 7,000 pairs of designer children's shoes.
Okay.
Our board members took those shoes and we made a collaboration and a collaboration process to take those shoes from north of I-80 to south of I-80, east and west, with all police departments that we could find, all school organizations that we could find, churches, and all other kinds of community organizations we could find to partner the police with those people. We had the police to take those shoes within their district to their schools, kneel on their knees, and put those shoes on those kids' feet and look them in the eye and let them know, you mean a lot to me. I want you to be successful in life. I want you to be someone of standards, someone of civility. I want to see you progress. And every police officer had a ball distributing those shoes to those kids to show that they care. And so that's one way of building trust. Also in the school system, restorative justice is important because running them to a jail cell is not going to solve the situation. So we had to deal with restorative justice as well.
Appreciate that. So if you don't mind, let's take a call.
Well, you know what? We do have the phone boards lighting up, and we will get to those calls because there is a lot to talk about. We are talking with Regina Brent with the Unity Partnership about how they are building this kind of solidarity with the police, and that's something that we're going to talk about and get to these calls right after these commercial breaks.
Okay, good stuff. All right.
Hi, everybody. This is Santita Jackson. Join me on The Santita Jackson Show, Mondays through Fridays, 6 to 8 a.m. morning drive on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Prescription products require an online physician consultation and are only available if the physician determines a prescription is appropriate. 90-day money-back guarantee available for finasteride only. Subscription required. See website for full details and important safety information.
Maybe you've noticed thinning hair. Maybe you're wondering if you'll inherit your dad's bald spot. It doesn't have to be destiny. With Hims, you can get doctor-trusted treatment to tackle your hair loss sent right to your door. Just answer some questions online and get connected with a licensed medical provider to figure out what's right for you. And when you go to forhims.com/growth, you can get that first expert consultation for free. Hims has everything from Luxe thickening shampoo to FDA-approved, clinically proven prescription pills to help stop loss and even regrow hair. If prescribed, it's shipped right to you. No waiting weeks for an appointment, no pharmacies, no trying to figure out what actually works alone. Get years of confidence for less than $1 per day. Get your free visit at forhims.com/growth. If you're not happy with the results in 90 days, Hims can give you a full refund. Go to forhims.com/growth for your free visit. forhims.com/GROWTH.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Metra is reporting a couple of delays this morning. First on the Milwaukee North Line, train 2118 due at Chicago's Union Station at 8:29. It's running up to 20 minutes behind schedule after a mechanical failure. On the Milwaukee West Line, the outbound train 2203 due at Big Timber at 7:48. It stopped with some freight train interference right now. In far west suburban Winfield, there's a crash on Roosevelt Road at Winfield Road. On the Reagan Tollway, eastbound, your drive time, I-39 to the Eisenhower is 52 minutes. It's the same for the westbound commute. On the Ike, 28 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound, it's the same. Similar story on the other expressways. They look good. I'm Jim Talamonte.
One more good idea with Marcus Newman.
Today on the show, we have Robin Mitzen. If somebody is struggling with this stay-at-home order, if they are having a hard time, what can people do to keep it together?
When people wake up, they should wake up at a certain time every day, make their bed, recommend putting on whatever tune you dance like no one's watching for about 10 minutes and get those endorphins going, some serotonin. Make that happen for yourself. It really enlightens the mood.
Sunday mornings at 8 on WCPT 820.
Attention homeowners that have ever had a broken appliance. That's a joke, right? We've all had broken appliances. I own a home just like you and have found a way for as little as $1 a day to have all the major appliances in my home on a warranty plan. They're guaranteed to be fixed or replaced. You know how expensive an air conditioner, the heating system, a washing machine, dryer, water heater, or refrigerator can be. For about $1 a day, all your major appliances are protected in case they break. Unless you're Daddy Warbucks or the Monopoly guy and you don't care about money, call my friends at the Home Service Club now and get a warranty on your major appliances. It's a free call and the first month is free. But be one of the first 25 people to call within the next 10 minutes.
800-814-5615. 800-814-5615. 800-814-5615. Again, that's 800-814-5615.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
The one and only Santita Jackson. Filling in for her on the show is T.O. Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman and Raza Siddiqui. We have been talking about kind of the changes that we see happening and the changes that need to happen. We talked about healthcare before and kind of what George Miller and Ali Ahmed at Loretto Hospital saw kind of as the future and what's happening with COVID. We are on now with Unity Partnership. So Regina, Brent, and Shoaib Kadri, who are talking about kind of the relationships that need to be fostered, the partnership. She's with the Unity Partnership, talking about police and community relations. Before we went to break, Regina was talking about her nephew and how he had donated sneakers and the interaction some people in the community had were these police officers distributing these sneakers, right? The first interaction wasn't something negative. It was a conversation over sneakers. We have previously talked to Sean Easton with Walking with the Warrior, who talks about how he had football games playing in the parking lots of police stations where they had tailgating, right? They basically had the police officers and members from the community talk and get to know each other and build a relationship that way. It wasn't just a faceless entity, but an organization within the community that cares about those people.
Yes, indeed. I think that's important, the community interaction. Then everybody should understand also that it's the year of partnership. You cannot work by yourself in your own little independent silos or whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to unify. Teamwork is very important. We need all hands on deck. So when Regina's talking about networking, trying to build the bridge with the police department, that's important work that needs to be done. But you also have a lot of organizations out here that are not getting any type of, what you might say, any type of assistance and resources, like ECCSC. You've got Brothers Standing Together out of Cabrini Green. You got Uline, just a few organizations that I work with in the city, and we all just need to unify so we can make Chicago safer in the year 2021. That's what it's all about.
And Regina, I'm going to ask you about that. You were talking about the partnership between the community and the police and how to get that there. What kind of work does your organization do with these other organizations like Tio was talking about to collaboratively work towards a common goal?
So, Raza, what we've done out here is we've partnered with many other interfaith organizations. We've partnered with PISA and Social Justice. There's another one, United for Peace. We've partnered with Indivisible,
right.
The League of Women Voters. All of this intertwines because voting is powerful as well. And the other part of it is you can change the system if you come out and vote. You can change the system if you network with one another because power comes in number. I want to say something else about police trust. A police accountability has to consist of you see something, you say something. George Floyd would still be here today. Eric Gardner would still be here today if some of those police officers intervened when they got a little bit too hot with handling them. The other part of it is that hire black officers where there aren't any. We have that problem out here. We're trying to recruit African Americans from HCB, the black colleges, the HCB. I'm sorry,
It's early in the morning, completely understand. But we have had this conversation before about having maybe even police from the community, right? There was that phenomenon. I call it a phenomenon because it sounds almost like something that we should return to, where you had beat police officers. You had that relationship. You had people who regularly patrolled a certain area and got to know the members in that area. We often talk about the residency requirements in the city of Chicago. The police officers need to know the community. Does it ever come down to district requirements? Live in the district that you are patrolling, because again, then you get to know the police officers, then the police officers get to know the community, they get to know the deeper story, the deeper meaning. Tio, you've been on the grassroots
I think
level.
it's very important. Police officers should live in the district where they work. That's very important because then you have a stake in that community, right? Because you're a homeowner there. You have a presence. You're not just working in the community. It's important to have police officers that understands culturally sensitive officers. And it's one thing to talk about being culturally sensitive. It's another thing to know how to know your people, okay? Because just because you're black doesn't mean you really know your people. You know your people, so to speak. So we have to be careful with that because my thing, if it was up to me, this is just on public relations. I would place African-American officers in the African-American community. I would place, Caucasian officers in the Caucasian community, Indian officers in the Asian community, the Indian community, and I would place Hispanic officers in the Hispanic community. And to say that, even though it's not going to happen like that, but I say that because it can help ease some tensions for right now, which is much needed. That's very important because because 9 times out of 10, it's always a white officer that shoots a black person. It's not the black officer, it's the white officer. So how does that happen? You have black officers as well. You have Hispanic officers. So we have to kind of look at the numbers dictate a different story. See, put it like this. Since we stood up against police brutality and excessive force, what people don't know, there's been a pretty sizable reduction in police-involved killings of black men since we took to the streets. So I want to say that just on a successful level, but more work needs to be done in the boardrooms. You know what I mean, Regina, with policy and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, Teal, as you know, Ali became great, the GOAT, because of a white police officer. A little boy stole his bike in his community. Ali was sitting crying. The guy asked him, said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Boy stole my bike." He said, "Well, don't you know how to fight?" He said, "No." He said, "Come go with me." They put him in their squad car, and they took him to the boxing ring. And that's how he became great. I'm saying that to say this. I do understand that we need to have our own culture and our own neighborhoods, but we can learn from one another when it comes to different races, colors, and creeds. My board consists of many diverse people who sit there and make policy and procedures. And this is what makes us grow inside. They need to know what's on the outside of their communities. And so I don't see anything wrong, basically, with white policemen serving in our areas. We all have biases. but we can't let those biases kick in at the wrong place. I don't want your bias showing up when I'm in the operating table and you're my doctor. I don't want your bias showing up when I'm sitting in your classroom.
Let me add this to you, young lady, and I appreciate what you're saying. So let me bring a little clarity here. I'm not saying that we should not have white officers in the black community. So that's important because you have some good white officers, good black officers. But what I am saying is that if you look at what happened to Anjanette Young, you had officers in her house and she was naked, she was handcuffed, and nobody respected her as a black woman in that situation. That's what I'm talking about. We have to be kind of mindful because you can train people all day long about cultural sensitivity and understanding the dynamics of different cultures or whatever, but that doesn't mean they can put it in practice. And that was not put in practice when you seen not one person until later on in the process put a coat over her, and the coat, she was still exposed. So that means there was a disregard. Total disregard. So I don't want to make it come out because I believe I have a lot of white officer friends. I have black officer friends. So it's not so much about a race thing for me. It's just trying to understand what would help ease the tensions in the black community because the black community is under siege. Okay. 80% of the gun violence victims are African-American in Chicago right now, 15% Hispanic, but there's a preponderance of gun violence taking place in the black community. That's what I'm talking about. And we just need to get to a place where we can solve that.
Yes, on my way back home to DuPage County the other day, Sunday after the march, because I tell you, I was livid, I was scared, I was frightened. This has really affected me to see Anjanette Young go through what she's been through, because I'm an African-American sister, I'm a mother, I'm an aunt, I'm all of that to my family. And I just can't imagine having something like that happen to me. It was highly intimidated. I was agitated by it, but I have to say it was one thing I wrote home on of a thought from Reverend Jesse Jackson from Rainbow Push. He said this one statement, and it was all that I needed. He said, had those cops been black, walking in or busting in on a white woman, we would not be here at this march today because it would have been handled. And I would hate to think that when I'm sitting at the table with the white chiefs out here in DuPage County, Will County, Kane, any other county, I'm sitting there thinking that I'm not safe with them, because I wouldn't be sitting there if I couldn't trust them, if I didn't think they had some kind of sense of loyalty to me. And I'm telling you the truth. Out here, that doesn't happen per se, but it doesn't say it wouldn't happen. So that's why we try to be a preventive type organization, to be at the table after we're at the protest. And that's what I try to teach young people when they call me to come speak. I said, Regina will come and speak for you and on behalf of you, and I will walk these streets with you. But you got to get to that back room and that boardroom to sit down and make policy with these people so that you can be a change agent. And it's important for us to teach our people how to be change agents, because nobody's coming to bail us out. This woman is going to suffer for the rest of her life. That sister will be afraid and intimidated every time she sees a police uniform. And I'm just so sorry that I'm so emotional about it, because I can't get it out of my head. And I will do everything and anything within the power of my organization, within the power of the chiefs that I sit with on a monthly basis, to try to change those things or to keep those things from happening throughout the state of Illinois, not just DuPage County, but throughout the state of Illinois, because the county board chairman is another gentleman who have tried his best to bring about the sheriff's departments out here so that we can come up with a collaboration with Hispanics, so that we can get the College of DuPage police university over there that they have. And we're going to work together to change some things.
Okay. Yeah.
You're listening to the Santita Jackson Show. You're on with Raza, Siddiqui, Tio, Mr. Ceasefire, Hardiman. We are talking about just a very important topic about building that trust, building that collaboration between police and the community. And Regina, you have told us kind of how you are making those inroads, how you found allies within DuPage County where you're trying to build these relationships. Let's talk about the ugly truth. There's, an administration that kind of held on to something that there was a hope for an agent of change here, and it seems like more of the same. How do you fight that? How do you address that? How do you combat that? And how do you fix that in DuPage County, where you are trying to build these relationships?
Sir, my history is my hope. I watched Dr. King, how he handled the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We can't do this alone. So we have to reach out to our Muslim brothers, our white brothers and sisters, Caucasian brothers and sisters. We have to reach out to the Hispanic community. We have to reach out to the Asian community, the Chinese. We have to bring everybody to the table. And I started out by getting a Black History Proclamation through Dan Cronin, the chairman of DuPage County, because I do believe if you can't acknowledge me, you will not respect me. And I need your acknowledgement to say that we've contributed much to society out here in DuPage County from the 1800s. We stopped, dropped, and rolled through here during slavery. There were some white abolitionists who helped us out. And so February 2016, as I was running for DuPage County Board out here, I ran in 2014 and I ran in 2016. There was a Black History instance where I sat there until the last day of Black History and I said, no, you won't. You will not get through Black History and not acknowledge that this is Black History Month. I got with 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats in the county board. And they came together for us to push this this proclamation so that we could be acknowledged as African American contributors out here in this society. That was number one. Now you've given me that paper saying you acknowledge my contributions to society. So now I want to be treated like a citizen in DuPage County. When I roll through here, walk through here, or run through here, I expect some respect. If you pull me over, I have no problem with it. I pay your taxes. I pay your salary with my taxes. I expect for you to protect me and serve me. But I want you to do it with dignity and self-respect. When I leave you, leave me with my self-respect. And so that's what we've worked on out here. We've had barbecues with police officers. We've had bowling events with police officers. Markel Oliver is my youth director. He's had Pure Alchemy to come out and perform all through last summer to lower the tension down for protesting. Down in Naperville, there was protesting where they started to looting or they started to get in a confrontation with the police. I intervened in that. I calmed those young people down so that we can get to the boardrooms and the back rooms. And so this is what you have to do. You have to be active, is what I'm saying. We can't sit back and think that this problem is going to fix itself. DuPage County is turning blue, but that's not the point. The point of the matter is we have to treat one another without this white privilege. We have to treat one another without implicit bias. We have to treat one another when our kids need AP classes in the board education. Jennifer Rowe and Rakita Leaks are diversity and inclusion leaders out here. We have to push them and support them to get an agenda for our children in education. Because if you don't teach us Black history, we won't know where we come from and we won't know where we're going to land. So it's important that the police departments benefit by communicating with us, sitting down and hearing us out. And this is what they do every month. And so we look forward to continue this work. And we look forward to rolling out our proposal because we want qualified immunity gone. We want no knock warrants gone.
Good information. I love your passion, Regina. I really do.
Well, absolutely. And I want to be mindful that we have listeners outside of the Chicago viewing area and kind of give a context as to what it is that Regina is talking about. Obviously, what has happened with Engine at Young has made national news. People know DuPage County is a county about 20 miles west of Chicago, where Regina is really talking about the changes that she is working in that area, because as much as the attention of the country is on the city of Chicago, so too do these relationships need to be extended throughout the country, right? DuPage County, which he's talking about, 20 miles west, wherever you're listening to this, we want to invite you to be part of this discussion. 773-763-9278. The Santita Jackson Show. Tio Hardiman and Raza Siddiqui. Be part of this discussion because this is what we need to talk about as we turn the corner from 2020 into 2021 and really discover how we are going to be that change that we want to see.
That's very important because this topic needs to be talked about forever until we make all the necessary changes. And that's what it's all about here this morning. But I'm still kind of caught up in these high numbers of homicides and shootings in Chicago and what more needs to be done. I have a restorative justice model we plan to push, but there's other organizations like Inglewood First Responders, some of the organizations that are not really, like say, receiving it. receiving any type of, notoriety when it comes down to the good work that's being done. So Regina just articulated on a higher level all the work that you all been doing. We want to thank you. So we might want to bring, let me get how you pronounce the other guy's name.
Let's bring Shoaib on to
on, just make sure he gets in there a little bit.
Yeah, some of the challenges that you've had to
Give me
face
some water,
with, for sure. I don't know how Santita does it. It's a long show, but again, just what a forum, right? What a forum to have this discussion. And talk about the challenges we face, not only in the models of healthcare, getting in terms of the community, but also this bridge that needs to be built as we go on ahead. Shoaib, bring us in on some of the challenges you've had to face and some of the accomplishments that your organization has been able to reach. You're a liaison with the law enforcement agencies. What's come of it?
Yes, well, in order to effect change, we've come up with this list of recommendations, and one of our biggest recommendations is to create a civilian collaboration board. And you rightly said, Theo and Raza, that you need somebody from the community to be involved. So our biggest recommendation is to create that civilian collaboration board that will have oversight over, the hiring, promotion, a review of key policies, procedures, employee discipline, crime trends in relation to hate crimes. So when you have, the way we've structured this organization or this collaboration board is to get a good segment of the civilians who live in that community. So, that's from an action item, specific action item that we're thinking of, that we're already talking to the law enforcement agencies on. But as far as challenges, since we are a fairly new organization, the challenges has been to get the word out, to make sure that we have enough people. But since the George Floyd incident, there's been a lot of interest, community partnership. So hopefully with this show, we will expand our reach so people know about our organization and people know about, the good work that we're doing, so that, more can join the events that we have and even participate and volunteer to help.
Well, it sounds like you've made quite some inroads. Regina was talking about how DuPage County Chairman Dan Cronin has not only acknowledged, but it sounds like made a commitment to help with the organization. Sounds like you've had some good feedback and at least dialogue with the law enforcement chief of police in DuPage County. What's the work left to do ahead as we enter 2021, Regina?
The work is to stay at the table, Raza. The work is to keep the conversation going, but you have to have collaborative action behind it. You can't just sit there and talk about it. You got to be about it, do about it, walk the talk. The other part of it is I like to give a shout out to our donors who have helped us get this far over the 4 years, like Cantigny Park, International Profits, and many others. We have an FOP out here out of Naperville who give great shop with a cop yearly
we missed a couple
events for the children from disadvantaged families. So we want to thank them as well, and anybody else who's ever given us anything to help us land above. But I want to say this. I am Anjanette Young, and I don't separate myself across the state line from Chicago to DuPage County. Whatever happens in this globe, in this world, against African Americans, Unity Partnership is there. We're going to do the best that we can with what we have. We're going to work in collaboration with people like Hardiman and all the other organizations. Rainbow Push, Reverend Wilson, Hermine Hartman is on the cause, and many other women of other leaderships, of other organizations who are not only Black, they're Chinese, they're white, they're Jewish, they're all coming together because never again, never, ever again do we expect this to happen to another Black woman or any other woman. Breonna Taylor could be alive today, but she's not. But Anjanette Young, yes, she's alive. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. When I saw that, it reminded me of the auction block all over again when they sold our bodies as Black women and slaves. Never, ever again. I am Anjanette Young.
Right on, right on. Like I said, I love your passion. You broke it down for me. I tell you. So we got we missed a few calls this morning, but this is the Santita Jackson show. We want to try to get one of these callers in. We got another caller coming in because it's important to receive feedback from some of the callers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's get to the next caller. You're on with Tio Hardiman, Raza Siddiqui on the Santita Jackson show, and talking to Regina Brent and Shoaib Qadri. Let's get to that caller.
Yes, indeed. We'll get to him because he's still trying to work it out. But yeah, Regina, so I plan to stay in contact with you. And a lot of my people on social media, they want to contact you as well. So before the show is over, you can provide us with information on how to get in contact with you and all our good people out here. Because you seem like you got a big time movement in the making here.
Sure enough. Much appreciated, Tio. And I love you for what you're doing. You stay safe and you stay careful.
Oh, will do. I plan to stay masked up. I tell people, wear your mask, no questions asked, wear your mask. And that's what's happening in Chicago. We need some protective gear for young people in Chicago as well. Like I said, in the form of bulletproof backpacks and bulletproof baseball caps. It may sound drastic, but when you have drastic times, you have to bring forth drastic measures, okay? Nobody else is protecting these kids right now, so let's protect them the same way we protecting people with our face masks and hand sanitizer and gloves and everything. I think it's fair,
May I say something else right quick, Tio?
Yeah.
I want to say that there are many wonderful officers serving and protecting under the police department.
I agree with you.
It's just that the voices of the bad apples are much louder than theirs. They're going to have to find a way to come up and speak out as well.
Okay. No, I agree with you 100%. You do have some good officers out there from all different cultures. I must say that. And I've met a lot of them.
And I want to thank again Regina and Shoaib for joining us on the second hour of the Santita Jackson show. I think, Tio, this gives us a lot of perspective as to, we talked to George Miller, we talked to Ali Ahmad, Regina Brent, and Shoaib Qadri, kind of from the healthcare perspective and the law enforcement community building bridges perspective. As we move forward with this, you've been on the streets, right? You have been there, you have talked to people. What do you see personally as the challenges that we need to face?
Well, for one, transparency from the top level, from the police department and from the mayor's office. Transparency is very, very important. Then I also see that people in the community must unify in order to combat these high levels of gun violence. It takes a village to raise one child, per se. So there's an old African proverb: when the elephants fight, the grass suffers. So that's what's happening right now. The grass in Chicago is suffering because everybody's doing their own little thing over here, over there. Regina talking about unifying. That's why I keep on putting that word out there for 2021. Let's unify and get the job done once and for all. With all the money being spent, $1.7 billion police budget, all the money being spent on violence prevention, Chicago should be under 300 homicides. One is too many. We should really be under 200 homicides. I've traveled to the United States. There's a uptick in gun violence in Baltimore, Philadelphia, different Memphis, St. Louis. Don't get me wrong, but there's a whole lot of money being spent. So is it really about the money, or is it about the right type of messengers going out there really trying to reach these high-risk young men out here? Because 1,200 carjackings in Chicago makes no sense. That means 100 carjackings a month almost. And you telling me you cannot reduce? Carjackings are up like triple now. Homicides are up 50%, right, for the year 2020. So in other words, there's a lot of work to be done.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that's most important, is to talk to these experts who are in the field, who are on the grassroots level, who are looking to not only talk about the work, but do the work out there on the streets every day, whether it's Loretto Hospital, who's out there actively administering this, Regina Brent, who's building those partnerships, who's building that communication with law enforcement in DuPage County, and just being part of that change.
Yep. And remember, this is Santita Jackson show. We appreciate being here today.
Absolutely. Tio Hardiman, Raza Siddiqui, Santita Jackson show. We thank all of you for joining us on this New Year's Eve. We hope that you have a wonderful and comfortable New Year's celebration. Be safe out there. Keep it real. And thank you for listening. Join us also on our program if you get a chance on Sunday. You got nothing to do. That's Against the Grain. Tio Hardiman and Raza Siddiqui, look forward to talking to you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Happy New Year.
Every Sunday at 3 p.m. right here, WCPT 820 AM radio, Against the Grain with Raza Siddiqui, Tio Hardiman. Thanks, Santita Jackson.